Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, those beyond and in between the binary, this podcast is scheduled for 1 hour and is the next episode of Below the Distance, a gorgeous ladies of wrestling podcast. Coming to the mixer first, hailing from Oakland, California, always creeping it real, the innovator of the Death Valley Uber driver, Jetta Ray. And her co-host, also hailing from Oakland, California, she writes the slash to bash back at Fash. She pops bottles of Femdon Perignon, Lauren Parker.
Well, let me tell you something, Lauren. We're almost done.
We are at the second to last episode.
We're at the penultimate episode. Penultimate is a word that is cooler than its own definition.
Yeah, actually, that's true. There was something going on Twitter where it was your craft brew is the name of like your grandfather's occupation and a word you don't fully understand. Mine is the metallurgist praxis. Jetta, what's yours?
Henchman for imperialism, intransigent.
Okay, so a military guy, I take it.
Yeah.
No, my other grandfather. So honestly, it should just be the metallurgist, because
Yeah, I was gonna say like
it's like
was your grandfather like the advisor to the king on like how to turn silver into water? Like what?
Our producer Paul made the joke that it's like it's alchemy where it turns steampunk into something interesting. Thank you, honey. That was a really good joke I borrowed. Anyway, yes, shout out to our fabulous producer Paul Sauer, who joined us in the last episode. So if you're curious what the man behind the mic sounds like, you probably aren't curious because you just heard it. We hope.
I mean, they could be curious because perhaps those dulcet tones have awakened something in them.
Oh, There you go. But no, my other grandfather was a horse
How
rider.
do we have a fucking show set in the 80s and there's not like one mention of bicurious? Like I feel like is that just more of a 90s thing? I feel
yeah.
Okay.
Early 90s though.
Oh, okay.
I mean, no, it was okay for men to be bisexual.
Yeah.
It was the 80s were a weird time. It was a time where everybody was deeply closeted.
Yeah.
You were post 70s, which had been when bi was very big.
Yeah.
Or very like in vogue. So I think 80s were like, oh, that's not real, which is sort of adorable. And then in the 80s, all the men that were gay were bi, except for all the ones that were really bi. But like, you know, it was just sort of like there was this, it was like keeping your foot on base for a lot of gay men. And then AIDS hit and it was awful. And that's the 80s. That's queerness in the 80s. And then Rent was written. So that's when queerness ended. That's the day that the queers died. Yes. What character are you in Rent, Jetta? Do you have strong Rent opinions? You like theater. I realize that Rent is sort of theater, but
I mean, Rent is every reason I got out of theater.
yeah, for sure. It's what all the reject theater kids became.
Yeah. I don't know what character in Rent I am. They're all, I don't know. It's going to be like the sad girl, but they're all sad girls, even the men.
Yeah, actually, especially the men, if anything. and then all the women are happy for reasons I don't understand.
Yeah.
All right, so
I guess I'm Rosario Dawson in that, like, I'm really fucking bad with candles.
So is Zelda, actually, my cat. She set herself on fire again last night. The candle flipped over and then burnt out, but her tail didn't. She's fine, but this is shaving years off my life now.
So we're reviewing episode 9, The Liberal Chokehold. Mm-hmm. It's directed by Lynn Shelton, who directed Hump Day, Mark Maron, basically like a bunch of films.
The most recent special, or the
yeah,
one?
the most
Okay.
recent one.
Okay.
Basically, it's like her like IMDb credits are just like films where like white dudes look at each other.
Yeah,
like,
and
on
then
the cover.
and then their navels, and then back
Yeah,
at each other.
yeah.
I mean, white dudes are fascinating. Just ask them.
And then it was written by Liz Flahive and Carly Mensch, the series creators.
Let's get into the wrestling fan news caveat, shall we?
Yeah. Well, so the fan news caveat is that I have been too busy working to watch wrestling, but I am now back in the wrestling business.
Woo! Tell us a little bit more about that.
So here out in the Bay Area, we have there's a group called Red Hot's Burlesque. They're a burlesque troupe. They do a lot of stuff around the Bay. And one of the things that they help put on is Go Deep, which is a lube wrestling burlesque showcase. And I've helped with them in the past, like a couple years ago, as like a wrestling coach and like character consultant. But it always struggles to like make money because it's like, you know, it's a weeknight and it's in the city and
it's in the city,
and it's also like, so it's a night of wrestling where you are not allowed to take photos, and it's very explicitly not for straight people.
Yeah.
So that
hence the photos. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, this isn't the 90s anymore, so you actually can't make money being gay in San Francisco anymore.
Yeah.
So there's
CC rent.
so they're starting it up again, and I'm rejoining as like a booker and character consultant. Actually, right after this episode, I'm talking with one of the wrestlers to help find her an opponent and give them like a scope of their character.
When does that start up?
The first one's gonna be October 12th. Mm-hmm. And I'll post the event stuff on.
Yeah, that'd be awesome if everybody's interested in kind of coming to see queer lady lube wrestling, which sounds super fun.
It is really fun. It is some of the best. Aside from like some really powerful like sexual experiences I've had, it is like the best I've felt in my body.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I know you originally asked me to do it, and then I mostly was just like, well...
I didn't ask you.
You sort of did.
I told you.
Yeah, that's kind of true. It's like the one time Jetta's domed me in our relationship. She's like, you're gonna be a lube wrestler!
Hey, I'm lube wrestling here!
Gabbity-doo!
Why is your impression of me like angry Brooklyn guy?
Italian. I felt that you would appreciate that.
You're going to wear fishnets and wrestle Bellissimo.
Get out of here.
Anyway. So I actually have a really funny story. So the first time I lube wrestled for Go Deep, so a couple things you may not that would be like readily they're not readily apparent, but they can become obvious when you think about them. Mm-hmm. The first time, like the first time you put lube into the pool, it's great. And then immediately after, it starts to get really gray and gross.
Yeah, it's like all things.
Yeah. So the first time I did it, I rolled around, I won my match, and then afterwards, my friend who had come with me was like, "I want to take you out for some ice cream because you did great." And then I had some ice cream, and then the ice cream went in my tummy, and then it got warm, and then my tummy was like, huh, this kind of feels like you just ate like a pint of lube. And then I got like really nauseous.
Oh yeah, well, because you already did. You did it twice.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting. We'll share all that info on the page, and I promise to take a picture of my outfit before and then after, but not during.
And if any of you want to hit me up on Facebook and let me know that lube wrestling isn't real wrestling, you should join your local branch of the Democratic Socialists of America or the YDSA, the youth branch. Join a revisionist history working group and then caucus with a time travel working group. Build a time travel machine. Come back to before we started this podcast and talk that shit to me then because you were listening to a show about women who are not real wrestlers.
Yeah. Good. That was a complicated narrative, but I think basically what she's saying is go fuck yourself.
I am not saying that because that would be stealing Mark Maron's film premise in this episode.
Oh boy. And that leads us into our progressive caveat. Jetta, you want to take us away?
The show's got some shit we've gotta discuss. Some progressive caveats for your praxis.
I'm chugging not your mom's iced tea, if that clarifies how I feel about this episode.
It's very nice. I like it.
It's quite delicious, and a gorgeous label. There's even ships on it.
There's really no way to get around this. Like,
this fucking episode sucks.
Yeah, I mean, it's a well-written episode, I think, but it
hits its marks.
Yeah.
That's how I'd put it. Right in the face is where it hits them.
I think that because the show didn't know it was going to get a final, like a second season, the 10th episode is when it all wraps up nicely.
Right.
So this is where we have to see the absolute ugliness of everybody, because in the next episode we have to remember them as plucky and
quirky,
resilient and enduring.
Yeah.
But yeah, in this episode, Mark Maron sexually assaults his possibly underage daughter and uses it as the preface of a TED Talk.
So, okay, let's talk about this episode. So we were kind of talking about this before, off air, because we talk off air. We were sort of discussing that this episode feels kind of like a stalling tactic, because it was they knew they needed to end on the big match. Spoiler, I guess, on the big match. So they had all this filler.
Yeah.
And they knew they couldn't include too much wrestling in that time because it didn't make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got this weird plot line where we got to parade everyone through, and they're like, what if we make it all problematic? That will neutralize all problematic elements of the problematic stuff. It doesn't. Spoiler alert, there too. It also kind of feels so the guy that wrote the last episode with Ruth being pregnant and getting an abortion, it felt like the writers here were well, yeah, so let's see what we can do. Let's really punish Sam Sylvia here with this, except for the people that end up punished is us.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing that's scary about all media, but specifically this show, is that the men never pay.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Sylvia is a sad man. I'm not saying he doesn't have hardships or he's not struggling, but anything that you do to him that is about enacting payment or justice or retribution is just gonna fucking roll off of him onto everybody that is under him.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how power works.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my progressive caveat, is that power sucks. The end. Thank you. And that is my speech.
Okay. So we have a cold open, where Jenny, Arthi, Tammy, the sisters, Justine, Melrose, and Rhonda are watching a news report about TWA Flight 87.
Yeah.
You want to talk about?
So this is, I'm going to add some context for this, but this is still a really weird place to start. So, on the morning of Friday, June 14th, 1985, Flight 847 was hijacked by members of the Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad after taking off in Athens. The hijackers were seeking the release of 400 Shiite Muslims from Israeli custody. So that was sort of the motive for this hijacking. People with Jewish-sounding names were kept separately, were taken off of the plane. It was 3 days of rough kind of torture, being beaten. A Navy diver was killed and left on the tarmac. And it took about 2 weeks and some negotiations to get everybody released, because people were being released pretty slowly. I think it was 39 hostages, something like that. It was a scary time, and I think kind of the first time it was weird to see kind of an issue where Islam and Muslim people and terrorism were being kind of combined in a setting that is outside 9/11, because that's just so in my zeitgeist. It just was not a thing I really knew anything about. 9/11 happened, and then I knew. And so this is just sort of oh yeah, this was part one. This was part one of all this shit. I forgot. There was more than the part I was here for.
See, it actually felt very contemporary for me just because they, so they do this like comedy bit where Stacy thinks that Hezbollah is a place and not a group of people, and Melrose keeps correcting her and saying that they are in Beirut.
It's interesting to see Melrose the educated one, but it actually does make sense.
It makes sense in this context.
Yeah, but
like that's literally like when I was living in a red state. That's literally every person you encounter just like thinks that like. Al Qaeda is
a place.
Is a place.
That Al Qaeda and Islam are the same things. That Barack Obama and Osama bin Laden are the same thing.
Yeah.
Thanks, Fox News. Anyway, this actually kind of clears up the timeline a little bit because, of course, we thought that this was taking place in like 88 or 89, which is, I believe, when the first Glow show ran. It actually dates it a little early. This is 85.
So that's the year I was born.
Happy birthday!
It is my birthday in like less than 2 weeks.
What are you gonna do for your birthday?
Get kicked around by a special lady.
Yay! Everybody clap. That's a happy thing.
And then like so this comedy bit ends with like Arthi asking everyone to stop saying her wrestling name.
Yeah, Beirut. So it takes Beirut's mentioned a lot, but it was weird it wasn't actually mentioned in the write-up. It must have been like kind of where it all went down. But she was just like, can everybody stop saying that? And this is kind of like the funny thing for me was that the episode before she comes on with the glitter unibrow and everything, and she's getting booed in a real way. Like they have to bounce guys out. It's a real problem. This has got to be like the worst day of her life. like, oh no, this is like never gonna cease.
Well, the actress that plays Arthi, Sunita Mani, just did an interview where she talks about like the politics of like racial misrepresentation,
which is kind of a big thing with her career because she basically never gets to play an Indian person. She's from her family is from India, I believe, and so she's kind of talks about being disassociated from being considered Asian, and it's a really good interview. We posted it on our Facebook page. I recommend everybody go and check it out. She's the best, and also I feel so bad for her.
That is one of the like positives of Glow, in the sense that like Netflix does not. I mean, I'm sure Netflix definitely has like a culture where you can't speak out on certain things like without getting it approved by like legal or whatever. But Glow has a much looser culture than actual pro wrestling.
Yeah.
When you hear wrestlers talking about racism, it is like racism that they've experienced as part of the job, it's always after they're done or when they know they're not getting hired back.
Right.
I really appreciate that about Glow, and that the fact that it's not really a wrestling show lets people talk about, issues that face wrestlers. I mean, like racial misrepresentation and like racial appropriation and like race baiting. Like those are all things like that are timeless problems.
And it also
long systemic problems in wrestling, and like there's not a good dialogue around it as there has been so far with Glow.
We also sort of see racial appropriation and cultural appropriation as something that only white people do. And I think it's really interesting and really cool to kind of like unpack that there's a ton of different kinds of appropriation that go on within marginalized communities, and that it is still appropriation. And welcome to power. It sucks. Again, that's gonna just kind of be my mantra the entire time.
So in our next scene, Debbie drops off Randy at the diner with Mark.
It's the same one that she went to with her parents, I think.
It's the diner. It's the same diner that they do all their diner scenes in. Just references.
Whoa.
Yeah. She claims that she's having her own hostage situation with Randy.
And he's a little terrorist.
Yeah.
And that she doesn't really know what they're whining about was roughly kind of what she said.
Yeah.
She was like, because he's the worst. I'm like, oh my God, you are every stereotype of a parent. And also a white person.
And then Mark tells her to stay in and have breakfast with him, and she's like, I got practice. But then she's like, I got practice an hour, and he's like, I could have 3 meals in an hour. What does that mean?
Waka waka. Well, the whole big joke is that he's fat. Which is,
yeah. Okay, I always took that as like 80s Gordon Gekko, like I have a gin and tonic sandwich.
I mean, that might
while fucking my secretary at noon, and then by noon 30 I'm ready for
jousting with Minotaurs or whatever. I've definitely seen that movie.
I don't know what people on Wall Street eat. Like,
I assume it is like deep fried Minotaur, and then the poor.
I've seen bits. I've seen the part of Wolf of Wall Street where someone eats a fish, but I don't think that's like standard Wall Street fare. I think it's
mostly cocaine and supermodels. I think it's all American Psycho.
Okay,
makes sense. Anyway,
and then she just begins eating pancakes with her bare hands.
And she says she has to carbo load, which is kind of like I do think that there's this weird fetish where we make thin women eat a lot for us on screen because it's like this weird fascination.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
It's like America, but also the world is not like kind to fat people, and we're all sort of fascinated about like thin women who don't care, who are like effortlessly thin, who don't try because women are supposed to eat salads, but then they're not because then they're uptight. So to have like a woman carbo loading as like an athlete, like there's this weird sexualization of it. And then Mark tells Randy, women eating with their hands is scary. He's like, "Mommy's scary," and I'm like, she's not your wife right now, bro. You're like split up. Take a hint.
What kind of princess does not prefer to eat pancakes rolled up in one hand like a burrito?
Yeah, well, if you like puts a couple pieces of bacon in there, maybe some like you could do this. You could. I mean, I've definitely had breakfast tacos where the pancakes are the taco shell. They're amazing. I make them at home all the time.
I do find it interesting. I appreciate that Debbie talked about how there's no food in the motel.
Mm-hmm. Because that seems to be the case.
Well, because that's actually a huge problem with athletes in certain sports where like they actually can't get enough food.
Oh yeah,
like especially
in food deserts.
Well, there have been like a few cases where like Olympians who are training can't afford the amount of food they need to maintain their physique because they have a lot of muscle, like especially
100%, yeah.
Especially if they're shot putters, weightlifters. I mean, the swimmer guy,
Lochte or the other one, Phelps,
yeah. Like Phelps goes through like.
I was just gonna say Lochte can just have a body that eats his brain mass. He'd be fine. But you were saying Phelps.
No, I mean Phelps. I mean, that's part of why athletes and weightlifters get into smoking weed, is it stimulates your appetite and lets you eat more than you probably, could otherwise. Mm-hmm. That's like why, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, like his, stories, as far as I know, I haven't verified this, but this rumor about our
ex-governor,
our ex-governor,
former governor,
yeah, it's just that like his coach would push him to smoke weed because he had to keep eating more food.
You have to eat so much food.
Yeah.
Like, as somebody who's weightlifting right now, the food and the timing with which you have to do it, you have to eat like within a half hour. You have to eat a lot with and a lot of protein. So it's like you'll protein shake, but then you also need a bunch of protein meals. But then you're also going to need carbs just to be able to function.
Yeah.
And then if you're working out for extended hours, you have to stop in the middle, like cram a bunch of food in and then do some. It's just it makes food awful. It makes it no fun.
Yeah, I remember when I was working out, when I was like training every day for a wrestling match, my trainer like afterwards would like make this like giant bowl of like yogurt and granola, which is the last thing you want to eat after like running.
Anything with that texture is like, ugh.
I mean, I don't mind it normally, but like,
yeah, exactly.
But like after running for an hour on a treadmill and like doing like.
You don't want to take in anything. You just want to kind of throw up and die.
Yeah.
As somebody that like works in the fitness industry, I'm like, yeah, that's the wall. Now I have to eat. I have to have the energy to chew.
I would totally get into like a fitness cheeseburger, like you know, like those Lenny and Larry cookies. Like if they did that, but it was a cheeseburger, like I would run with one of those in my hand. And, I mean, I think I just want to do that.
I kind of just want to picture like somebody with like a like fishing rod with like that has like a pie hanging in front of you, and then like you're running on it, and it's funny because it's awful. But still, I kind of feel like that'd be perfect for Fry Havoc Gets Fit.
Yeah, you know what's funny? It's like I run a food blog, and even I have to be like, what is a way that I could trick myself into eating a cheeseburger? So then we go to the
Just
meeting.
wait till we start training TRX.
Yeah. Oh,
It's
yeah.
gonna be fun.
That's a band, right?
Get out. No, I mean TRX is this really wonderful strength training workout where you use a lot of your body as resistance and you use it in different methods, and it's really, really great for physical therapy and for people with different, like, you know, who's starting out, and then also people that are continuing on. But their tagline is "Make your body your machine," and I hate it. They're really trying to make it tough, and I'm like, it's a really good solid workout that they're fucking it up with like supplements and shit, and it's frustrating for me as somebody that like wants people to be happy and feel good when they exercise.
I want to go full like Pete Seeger on that and just be like, I want to make my body the machine that surrounds hate and forces it to surrender with love.
Yeah, okay, I'd be up for that, Jim.
So Sam is at a meeting with the network. And they tell him, the network, Glenn Clit joke, tells him that they want to see more of Tammy and Cherry, and specify no KKK, which makes this network more morally upstanding than like the networks we have in 2017.
Yeah.
So okay, so like sleazy 1985 television network that doesn't know the word for anime is like has better morals around white supremacy than like Facebook.
Us now.
Yeah.
Us. I think actually us.
Yeah. Bash runs in and like his belt's undone and he's got his shirt untucked and his hair is like just all over the place.
It is. He looks like Sam. He looks like Sam does in the beginning of the show.
True, yeah.
Like that, and I think that's down to the shitty polo. There were no other shirts for men. I checked.
Bash asks the network if they have a venue, and the network's like, we were very explicit about this. Like, you need to provide a venue.
It was interesting to see men talk and how tense they get at each other.
Yeah.
There wasn't like that whole like, oh well, you know, like maybe you could give me that report on Monday. Like, there's none of that. It's just like no, we were very explicit. Like, it's kind of baffling, but it is a little bit like watching like lions.
I will admit that like, so I work for a communications firm that's like all women and like one dude, and the one dude is like the designer, so he doesn't do any of the like day-to-day stuff. So it's very much like, yeah, so I know that we set the deadline for today, but I'm just not gonna be able to get around to this till tomorrow. Can we push this to Tuesday? And everyone's like, yeah, that's fine. I don't want to like, yeah.
As somebody who works in a nonprofit and who has worked in almost exclusively all female workspaces, that's 100% the deal. I have to use extra. I like feel compelled and stressed out about email because it makes me like sound too harsh, or I read it too harsh. So I include exclamation points that make no sense.
Yeah, as your former boss, I can. I don't
want you to think I'm mad at you. You have to remember that's a real problem with you. See what I did there? That's called deflecting.
Yeah.
No, there's 100% this whole like managerial style that is coming across here that like Debbie, like Ruth fucked Debbie's husband and Debbie's not being this forthright.
True. And Bash is like, who's very clearly been doing a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
Writes off his first time producer
and didn't tour the venue, so he's been gone.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. First time producer jitters, which is not a thing.
Sam and Bash meet outside, and Bash relates that he's been on a bender for a few days.
He tried to, so he's been cut off, and he tried to double his money at the racetrack. It didn't work.
He also mentioned that he got the high score on Burger Time, which adds to me a level of depth, because Burger Time's a real hard fucking game.
It really is. It's a super hard game.
The Flintstones have a version of Burger Time. It's compelling in some way. Mm-hmm. It's like I just love that people are like, what can we do to make like the Stone Age? That's something I love about the Flintstones. It's like, what can we do to make the Stone Age like whimsical? Is like
you turn it into chewy vitamins.
Add the tedium of modern life.
Yeah.
That said, that like I don't know if you read the comics. So the Flintstones recently have these comics, and they're fucking amazing. They like talk about like the limitations of monogamy and like capitalism, and talk about like the like not only moral but also like societal necessity for acceptance and integration of LGBT people. It's wild.
You sound like you've lost your mind. I don't know that I believe any of this. You're gonna have to bring it to validate this, because I'm like, is this like when people read entirely too much into My Little Pony and start talking about how Rarity weaponizes femme performance?
That's fair. That's kind of like how I felt, honestly, where I was when I first heard about 9/11. Like when I it happened while I was in transit to school, and I showed up to school, and like my friend was like, yeah, so like people flew a plane into the World Trade Center. I was like, yeah, I saw that episode of G.I. Joe too. Like,
oh no.
And yeah,
I was in 7th grade, social studies, and my social studies teacher was he was a very bad teacher and clearly a very bad man, but he liked me. Starting a theme of men in my life, but like he just like totally told stories that were made up, and like I don't think he taught us very much. But anyway, he had gotten a call saying that a plane had been flown into the White House. Turns on the television, because we still had like televisions in the classroom.
Right, I remember, yeah.
And it was the and then the second tower falls.
Yeah.
And he said, so this is an important part of like communication and relaying truth, because the person on the phone definitely said White House, and this isn't the White House. So that was an interesting choice of learning moments.
Did I tell you about my 7th grade experience in civics class about John Brown?
No.
So in 7th grade civics, we did a mock trial.
You called it civics still, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
We had a mock trial for John Brown.
Wow.
For those of you who don't know, John Brown was
an abolitionist.
An abolitionist who organized armed militias.
Yeah.
To like,
not a pacifist.
Yeah. So we had the mock trial, and I was his defense attorney. And I was, keep in mind I'm 7th grade, but I argued that slavery is so bad that witnessing slavery drove John Brown insane, and therefore he and his followers were not responsible for murdering the slaveholders who had traumatized him.
So that's cool.
And I got him off.
So I have a bad version of that story. In college, we were during one of these intro classes learning about like protesting in the 60s, I think. And so we had to do this whole defense of people protesting the Iraq War. And talking about like, and so I was on the side of pro-illegalizing. That was what I had to do. And so I was talking about like, Abraham Lincoln suspending habeas corpus, and that's saying, we've had, previous presidents have enacted this in order for the, the preservation of the people. And I won, and I flipped out. of my class because and I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? This is your fucking like amendment right. Are you insane? And they're like, oh, you don't like believe that? I'm like, no, it's in the fucking Bill of Rights. You can protest all the shit you want. So the long story short here is, Jed is great, and I will yell at you if you take what I say too seriously.
Okay. So Bash tells Sam that his mother cut him off and there's no more money.
Yeah.
And Sam flips his shit and everyone else's shit in the vicinity, which is also just Bash.
Yeah, just sort of like all the tables. Like, they don't exist, but he built a table to flip it.
Yeah.
Like, he's that mad.
Sam tells Bash that he's just a human checkbook, and, without the money, then he's just an eager fanboy that sold 14 women on a pipe dream.
So he does mention about, like, what about my fucking movie first?
Yeah.
But he does very quickly switch to fighting for them. And this is, like, the first time he's aggressively, like, gotten in someone's face for these women unprovoked. Mm-hmm. Like, it's sort of supposed to be kind of a turning point for him. In some ways, that's good and bad. But, like, this is him going, yeah, we're all fucking in this. They're all fucking in this. Like, he's no longer like, they're not really wrestlers. This is dumb. He's, like, very in it now. And so that was nice to see. Unfortunately, Bash got his eyebrows shouted off.
So in the next scene, Sam tells the wrestlers that the show is probably canceled. Specifically says, we're not canceled because we never went on the air. We're on hiatus.
Yeah, indefinitely.
And everyone, yeah, like, people start crying. Like, Vicky the Viking can be seen crying. Melrose can be seen crying. Everyone's really upset. I mean, I didn't like the scene. Like, I didn't like...
I'm not sure who it was for, but I think Carmen saying I haven't spoken to my dad
Yeah.
for this show because I wanted to be here was, like, one aspects of it were great, but, like, it's not like they're saying that to Bash. They're just saying to Sam.
Well,
Like,
I mean,
"Ah."
when I say that I don't like the scene, it's like this is one of those, like, cost of admission. So I used to date a woman who thought of everything she didn't like about someone as a cost of admission, and then she weighed the relationships that she went in with, like, is this cost of admission enough for me? Like, is this relationship worth that cost of admission?
Yeah.
And, like, for me, the cost of admission at shows like this is I have to watch a lot of women be sad and be crushed by men.
Yeah.
Like, for me to enjoy the thing that I actually came here for, which is to watch women be powerful and big.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of that up and down shit. And some of it is, it's like, in some ways it reflects too true to life, and that is a constant thing.
Yeah.
But, like, it's a fucking show. Like, create some fantasy for us, would you?
Yeah.
This whole, like, we gotta be brutally honest to women about how shitty their lives are. In fact, you don't.
Yeah.
You can lie to us. We would prefer it. Thanks. Anyway. So basically, in order to keep the venue, they have to raise $9,000, which would be about $20,000 in today's currency.
And Ruth goes on this inspirational speech about how they can fundraise like they do in the theater.
Yes, because two stagehands carried her around in the air for 3 hours when she played Peter Pan, which is, like, not the best story to use here, where you, like, suckered two dudes to, like, carry you around for 3 hours, but also respect. I feel conflicted. I have so many emotions, you guys.
And Betty suggests that they do a swimsuit car wash. So I have a funny aside on this is, you know, a lot of, I talk every day with fellow DSA members. Mm-hmm. And I have a comrade who lives in Florida and has been updating us on, like, what's happening.
Yeah, are they safe?
Yes.
Okay.
Part of her updates have been letting us know the whereabouts of the sexy bikini car wash that's across the street from where she works.
Good.
And it's, like, all queer socialist women. So, like, everyone, like, we're all fucking stoked. We're all like, yes! Woo! Like, the world, like, as long as...
They're open like Disney World. They're open.
As long, yes, like, as you know, as long as they're... What's that line about, like, children's laughter? Like, as long as children are laughing, there's hope. But it's, like, instead, it's, like, as long as there's women in bikinis doing car washes, then there is hope.
Okay.
I don't know.
I don't know either one of those references, but I like the second one. I'll put that in a card.
Okay, yeah, all right, cool. So Sam visits his racist, anti-Semitic mom, and asks...
Oh, that's Bash.
Oh.
So this is a problem that Jetta was having, is that she started to fuse Bash and Sam together.
Yeah.
And so she said at one point, she's like, call Bash Sam again.
So Bash visits his racist, anti-Semitic mom.
Played by Elizabeth Perkins.
Who's that?
So she is an actress that you've probably seen in a lot of things, but she was the romantic lead in Big, which
That's the movie with the giant
the piano.
keyboard. Yeah.
Yeah. I knew that's the movie with the big keyboard. Yes, it's Tom Hanks is a 13-year-old boy put into Tom Hanks's body. So he's Tom Hanks, and so then he gets to lose his virginity to Elizabeth Perkins. That movie does not hold up, guys, anyway. But that movie came out in 88. Her first film role was in 86.
How could we have guessed that the giant... I mean, so that is one of my all-time... Like, up there with, like, if I wanted to just be a capitalist and make money and just buy a cruise ship, like, that would be in my top 5. It'd be like...
The Big Hamster Ball. I'd also want that.
Yeah, it'd be like my own like film sound studio, a houseboat, a sex dungeon, and if I couldn't afford a sex dungeon, a closet in the film studio that could, ostensibly just like transform into one. Giant keyboard.
A storage closet, which is a sex dungeon renamed. That's what you're like, if I can't afford it, I'm just going to rename a storage closet, and then I can afford it by some miracle. Is that what you think capitalism is?
I mean, I have been to wrestling shows in storage units. There's a company out here, East Bay Pro. They operate out of Pacheco, California, which is like a half hour north of Oakland. And they wrestle like literally out of like, I mean, it's a nice storage unit. It has a bathroom and it has like a corner where they can plug electronics in so you can have some like nachos. But we went, like, me and an ex went a few times, like, in the summer, and that was...
So, a partner of mine really wants kids, and so we've kind of been in this negotiation stage, because, so he really wants kids. I countered with a legal basement speakeasy, and that's what my money would go towards, like, 100-year-old bottles of absinthe.
I had absinthe for the first time yesterday.
How did it go?
I was...
Yep.
Yeah.
That's correct. That is, yep, I know, that's it. I know
Yeah.
that life experience.
I tried to get the in-house jazz band to play, like, Black Sabbath.
You're never allowed to get drunk without me there.
Okay. So, okay.
So Elizabeth Perkins refuses to unfreeze his trust.
Yes. And he says that people are counting on him, and it's the first time that he's used her money for something he cares about.
Which is sort of dark and twisted. It kind of adds all this backlog of, what the fuck were you using her money before for?
Yeah.
Like, you got Florian and you got the sex robot. Like, you didn't care about that? Florian, dump him.
And then she tells him that she expects him at her fancy cocktail fundraiser for Nancy Reagan's Just Say No campaign. Bash's mom's name Birdie.
Yes. It's a rich people thing.
Right. There was someone in the Ronald Reagan household named Bird or Birdie.
There was Lady Bird Johnson. Is that who you're thinking of?
Probably.
Yes. Okay. So she was
That's
the
yeah.
one. Yes. In a similar naming fashion, there was Mitt Romney, short for Mittens. I've known rich people named like Tut and things like that. Tad, yeah. Short for, I presume, Thaddeus. Like something horrendous like that.
What do you think my rich name is?
Your rich lady name?
Yeah.
I think it would be Freddie, short for Wilfred.
I could rock that.
You totally could rock that.
Yeah.
What's mine?
I would have, if my name was Freddie, I would have to start smoking. Okay, true story.
I.E. though.
Yeah, when I transitioned, I started smoking, like, cigarettes, because I thought, because when I was like, I'm out, I'm a lady now, I can watch all of Audrey Hepburn's movies, and no one can judge me.
Were you smoking cloves?
No, I was, whatever I could put on I wanted the stick.
Oh, I see. No, I had one of those, yeah.
Okay, I think you're a Dagmar.
Okay. Tell me more. I need to know what stereotype that is. I'm unfamiliar with that specific trope.
Well, you're tall and vaguely Nordic.
Yeah, that's sort of true.
You know, like
fake Nord.
Well, that's gonna be like, yeah. I mean, like that's the thing with like rich people is they don't understand literally anything outside of like how capital gains tax works. So like
or estate tax.
So every fancy dinner you go to, like you'll just get somebody like, why are you so tall? And you'll just be like, my name's Dagmar. What the fuck do you want?
We used to get that with an organization that had red shoes in the title. And every time we do like a fundraiser or anything, some volunteer would come up and be like, "You're not wearing red shoes." And like, turns out they're a gang color. So we can't actually give out red shoes. Bye.
I did not know
That's real. That's so real. And this is sort of interesting for me as like a nonprofit worker because like there's so much of like this weird pageantry that goes on.
Yeah.
Like, this is a very different wing of nonprofit culture in which rich people have already been accrued.
Yeah.
I was always working in the part that was always trying to bait them.
Right.
But
okay,
so
yeah.
it's a little different. But yeah, she's trying to keep black children off of crack after Ronald Reagan pumped crack into their neighborhoods.
So then we go to the car wash for charity. Justine asks Sam if they'll ever see each other again. And Sam says that it's a job. Jobs end. You have to get used to it. And when she just sort of stands there kind of dejected, he asks her if she stole more of his shit, and then she runs off.
So a couple things. One, she does not do a great job in this particular scene. Like, she has kind of this whole guppy face situation. But he also is doing that thing where he's like, I'm squinting, even though there's no reason for me to squint. Like, he's doing a Clint Eastwood, like, aspect. It just doesn't... I didn't like this. And it was more than just Mark Maron being a dick. So Mark shows up, as in, not Mark Maron, but a Debbie's Mark, which I just realized that it's Mark and Mark. And Anyway, so he shows up to support women's sports because he's a smug little shit, clearly here to like bait Debbie, and she tries to get him to leave by charging double for his car wash because of the fig juice he's been parking under at work. It's a Beamer, and he should also be set on fire. And in that time, Ruth sees them and just walks away to get a soda. Like I kind of. There are a few times where I feel genuinely bad for Ruth. I feel genuinely bad for her here. Because whose shoulder does she have to like, kind of interject and, like, fall onto? Why? Mark Maron's, of course. Where he gets to stand there as she's drinking a 7-Up. Excellent product placement. And says, is that the guy? Remember, she just terminated a pregnancy that she accrued as a result of the guy that's in the Beamer that's, like, just driving through now. And he's like, I just don't think he's that attractive. And she ends up saying, I like unavailable men who compliment me. And she does it with a straight face. And I have been Ruth so many times in this situation where everybody thinks that, like, they're validating you by, like, critiquing your romance choices because you didn't believe in yourself enough. I actually feel very genuinely bad for her because she did just, like, get an abortion after, like, the result of this affair that she had with her best friend's husband. I think she gets a little bit of slack here.
Yeah.
And Mark gets a punch in the fucking face. All of the Marks here should be cracked. Their heads should be cracked together like coconuts. That's sort of what I walked away from the scene with.
I'm glad that you watched the scene because I saw the scene and I was like, is that a glass? That's a glass bottle?
Yeah.
Like
that came out of a... Well, because it opens. It's like a refrigerator.
Right. Like
seems like a really good way to get everything stolen.
Well, yeah. Well, like those, like the soda, like we started using like aluminum cans like in the 60s.
Yeah.
And this takes place in 1985, but they switched to corn syrup.
Yep.
In like literally the year before this.
Yeah. Yeah, none of this makes sense. What were they thinking? But I'm glad you were here to pick up on all the queerness of this while I strayed it all over this situation. I still speak heterosexuality. It's, you know, it's you got to have an ear for it. It comes in and out, but when I'm immersed in the culture, I pick it up really fast.
So in the next scene, Keith is working out in the motel room, just lifting weights.
Yeah. Doing some curls.
When Cherry asks why he isn't, I just love Keith so much. She asks him why he's not helping, and he says he doesn't look very good in a bikini, and then lifts again and goes, yes!
He is wonderful. I love that he's so, like, not... His masculinity is never in question, but he's so unburdened with a lot of, like, traditional gross masculinity that I think white people project onto black men.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, Cherry looks fucking hot! She looks so cute. But I like their banter. She's warm, he's warm, like, they give to each other. It's beautiful.
It's very atypical because, like,
especially for the 80s.
In most shows, if a guy had to live in a motel because his wife got a job, Like, that would be
He
their
would
whole...
be Mark.
That would be their whole story, is
Yeah.
that he was just, like, grumpy and hated it. But,
Because, like, he's entertaining himself all day, every day, while she has to, like, he must be doing something.
yeah.
And but whatever it is, we don't know what it is, but he's not bothering her with it either. He's not like, I'm bored. Like, he's just like, I'm gonna work out and look hot in a bikini.
I think every man should aspire to look hot in a bikini.
That's right.
So Cherry gets a call from Mallory from episode 1.
You know, remember the one that, like, the bathroom thing? No? Yeah. Okay, she was in the bathroom and she was an agent. There. We had to remind, because I forgot. It was so far away from this, like, I was like, oh.
I actually feel jealous of Mallory, because that's, like, not the most awkward thing that's happened to me in a bathroom.
Yeah, okay.
I was once in a bathroom and looking at myself, and I had a moment of weakness, and I muttered to myself, "You're a monster."
Oh, no!
And I didn't realize there was someone else in the bathroom, like, in the stall. So, like, half a minute later, I hear, "Well, at least I'm not fat and gay." So, a lot to unpack there. One, it implies that I could have been one or the other.
Yep.
And two, it had to have been...
Or that she was one or the other.
Yeah. So Mallory asks her if she'd like to audition for a show called Chambers in Gold. It's Cagney and Lacey, but with a black girl and a Jew.
Boy, people are really cavalier about dressing like Jewish people in this show, huh?
Yeah. And Cherry accepts the audition. Is Chambers in Gold, is that...
That's not real.
That's not like a pun or anything? I'm asking you because apparently, like,
Heart and Heart. No, I can't think of anything. Like, not even, like, it. Chambers in Gold. No, I think it's just a play on Cagney and Lacey, to be totally honest. But if anybody knows that that's actually a reference to a major show or a play off of a major show, please contact us via the Facebook page or the Twitter. We've got a Twitter, right, Jetta?
We do.
Okay. I follow it, but I never see it. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I'm yeah. I do this for a living, and yet I struggle to do it for myself.
I mean, that was sort of the negotiation, as I was like, I'll do the Facebook, you do the Twitter.
Yeah. Bash visits the girls after the car wash.
He looks kicked. He looks like a kicked puppy.
Yeah.
He's wearing a sweatshirt. It is horizontal stripes. Like, I think he's really punishing himself here.
Yeah. He says he begged and pleaded with his mother, but she refused to give him the money.
And Mark is really... Sam, sorry. Is really enjoying, like... Whatever you can say to me, you can say in front of everybody. Like, he all of a sudden is the good guy, and he is being the worst for it.
Yeah.
And so the car wash made about $278, which, you know, Sheila hasn't counted the change yet, which I looked up. It's like $650. So needless to say, that's short of what they need. And Bash is the idea of crashing his mother's fundraiser and getting all the rich conservatives to write checks to them for the wrestling show. Which, honestly, I've seen more egregious use of nonprofit funds.
Yeah.
Like... Autism Speaks is pretty terrible. Like, I think I'd probably prefer this would be like the case.
So they all go to Birdie's mansion, and Sam meets outside with all the wrestlers who are they're very. This is like the peak 80s.
The outfits are very, because it's like, again, it's very working girl.
It's very shoulder pads.
It's very sweaters. It's very loud prints. It's very big hair. You like fake eyelashes, like not like full blown Lifetime movie dark blue eyeshadow. Like, it's not glam girl, but it's like Tammy Faye Baker. Yeah, that's it.
Well, Sam asks all the wrestlers why they look like fancy Mormons.
There we go.
Which should be
they do all look like televangelists.
Should be our band name.
Yeah, Fancy Mormons.
The Fancy Mormons. And Ruth...
We wear the underwear, but the butts are cut out.
Ruth says it's because Bash told them to dress conservative.
She's wearing a mint suit jacket with gold piping and
tunic.
buttons.
It is a wizard's tunic.
It is a fucking ugly thing, and I'm so
with
angry
buttons.
about it. And she wears these long, dangly, like, globe-like earrings that are just... they match the buttons. It's so... God, I hate the 80s. I hate it all.
If she tears a napkin in half, it'll become 2 sentient napkins. They meet Bash's mom's door guy.
Who is on a bunch of shows. Like, I've seen him everywhere.
Really?
Yeah, he was on the Good Place, which I just finished watching, which I really enjoyed. But he's always like the accountant in the comedy show. I think he's been on The Office, like, kind of a passing guy. And Bash convinces them they're part of WAD, Wrestlers Against Drugs, and then pretends that Jenny, who he immediately goes to, they're off of crack, and he's just like groping Jenny in her big like cowlick hair. And then says she doesn't speak English, so they'll have to translate. And her face just falls. And so he gets them in his speakers, and then Mark comes in, he's like, I'm a drug counselor, which is the funniest thing, I think, ever. Not that Mark Maron could not be a drug counselor. I know that he is sober, 18 years, congratulations, sir. But the idea that Sam Sylvia is a drug counselor is, like, really funny.
Yeah, and he tells the door guy to choose life, and the guy goes, I did.
Yeah.
And like, is this
really
in a very
weird moment.
Very defeatist? I once told an editor to choose life as a way of telling him that I was just gonna drop out of. It was for the Daily Dot. They do like they do those like what's the word I'm looking for? They do like monthly kind of like special edition issues like for a magazine. And I told him to choose life because he said that my piece was killing him. Not really funny. You can cut that out, Paul, if you want.
I say we keep it in.
All right.
Let's just burn some bridges.
Yeah.
With ourselves on top of them, covered in gasoline. Anyway.
That is not appropriate.
Well, so that's my big thing is I said, if you're going to burn the bridge, you have to exit the bridge first.
Yeah.
You can't just like...
If you burn a bridge you're on, you're just burning the ground.
Yeah,
it's not...
well, but I'm like, this is not helpful.
So Bash introduces Debbie to his mom, who's overheard saying that they will break the liberal chokehold on the House of Representatives in 1986.
Hence the title of this episode. Little did she know that liberals prefer drop kicks. So Bertie says to Debbie that she wears a lot of makeup in that like little tiny rich lady voice.
Yeah.
And Debbie gets halfway through thanking her before realizing it's the most devastating burn anyone's ever given her.
That was really well done.
It was Elizabeth Perkins like nailed this. But of course I dealt a more even devastating comment in which I said Bertie has no room to talk since it appears her jawline is 90% piano wire.
Sam and Ruth are in the lobby, and Sam complains about the hypocrisy of these white right-wing idiots.
It sounds like he wants cookies. That's kind of like the way it sounds. It's like whenever like a guy sidles up to you, he's like, God, can you believe how unfeminist this is?
Yeah,
and you're like, well, get out of the Love Actually line, okay?
Sam's like attempts at being an anti-racist ally come up. I think are a pretty, not a big theme, but like a very important thread that we'll talk about at the end of the episode. But he reveals to Ruth that they lost the venue. Brooke Hogan called him an hour ago.
She doesn't appear anywhere in the episode, but you know, off screen.
I see. Mark Maron gets a call back. We do not get our call back. And he says that he just wants to not be alone while he drinks before he never sees any of them again.
Yeah, he actually sounds genuinely sad here. And Ruth tells him that they'll figure it out because she's, you know, plucky. And Sam walks right up to the band, asks if they have any blow, and then when they say no, he says, do you want some then?
It's this weird... There's definitely an attempt at like...
Weird racial parody.
Yeah, ironic racial humor, where he goes up to black jazz musicians, asks them if they have cocaine, and then when they respond... you know, honestly and rightfully offended.
Yeah.
He's like, you want some? Like, there's this attempt to turn that stereotype on.
And he's like, and I'm pretending to be a drug counselor. Yuck, 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 yuck.
But it's like, there's nothing ironic about a white dude pushing drugs.
Yeah.
On
in
like,
a fundraiser. It doesn't make him.
But yeah,
cool.
I mean, like, yeah.
Like that's like quintessential. Like I'm pretty sure I saw the scene in Wolf of Wall Street.
So, while doing drugs with the band, which includes snorting cocaine off a picture of the Reagans...
I approve.
So he explains the plot of the movie he's been working on for 10 years, and then immediately finds out that is almost identical to the plot of Back to the Future, which just came out and is very successful.
He's devastated, and everybody laughs at him. And that would happen to him. And the thing I think that bugs him out the most is the fact that it's a comedy. And Back to the Future is a comedy and not like a sad like movie, because he sounds like a fucking slog. So,
our original guest for this episode was Jay from J.W. Friedman from I Don't Even Own a Television. Was supposed to be here, but he couldn't. And if I wish he was, because I wanted to commiserate him about this. That like when you're in bands, and specifically when you are like young and you just started playing guitar and you're in bands, you get this all the time where someone thinks that they
have developed something.
They came up with like a really cool riff.
Yeah.
And then found out that like, oh, that's Iron Man from Black Sabbath.
Or like the Doors.
Yeah.
Do they have riffs in the Doors? Not really, huh?
They have keyboard riffs.
All right.
Yeah, they're more of a...
They play it on their keytar, and then they're like, look what I can do. Like, that sounds like a real thing that probably happened. Remember keytars?
I do. I also specifically remember that the Doors do not play a keytar.
No, I know, but can you imagine somebody playing a Doors riff on a keytar? That's all I've ever wanted. Somebody, send me a video of you playing a Doors riff on a keytar, please.
You date two dudes with mustaches. You should be able to, like, self-reliance this.
Some of them, yeah. I know.
So he,
Get it together, Paul.
So in the next scene, Rhonda has to help Melrose maintain the illusion that they're sober.
Yeah, that's right. I was like, oh, because she's the designated driver, but then I realized, no, they're drug speakers.
Yeah, I've had to do that sometimes. Like I've dated a few people who were sober or straight edge, and then having to like pretend in public that like I'm not a heavy drinker.
Right. I assume that the straight edge person. I assume the only straight edge person left is Davey Havoc from AFI. I figure everybody else is retired, but I could be wrong. As somebody who just drank not your mom's iced tea, which is very delicious.
There's a huge straight edge community in wrestling.
Really?
Yeah.
Are they all in recovery? Or
no,
is that like
they're all like old punks.
Right. Punk is... Yeah, I've never heard of punk music.
So Debbie and Ruth are talking, and where Debbie confesses to Ruth that she's actually started to like wrestling, but knows that even if the show got made, they're terrible at it, and it'll look like shit. And then Ruth starts to cry, because it's clear that, like, if the show stops, it means she will stop having an excuse to hang around Debbie.
This is 100% true. Like, so as much as I'm just like, dear God, I get it. Everybody's going to be really sad that the band's breaking up. But, like, this actually kind of rang true, and it does sort of make sense that at this point, after this thing that's happened, that she has not told Debbie about, and, like, but she had to, like, be supported through with Mark Maron, which getting an abortion with Mark Maron is like getting an abortion in the woods by a wolf. Like, ugh. Like, I'm just like, man, like, I'm gonna let her have this one, because of course she's, like, wrecked a little bit.
And then Debbie starts to cry, and then she says that it's sad that Ruth ruined the ability for them to ever have a normal conversation.
That's actually kind of a fair criticism. As much as Debbie's been shitting on Ruth, I don't actually think this is mean-spirited.
Yeah.
I think she's saying, I really miss my fucking friend. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Go and get your snacks, get your popcorn, get your mom's iced tea or not your mother's iced tea. We don't care. And have a good intermission, everybody. All right, we're back.
So, today for your wrestling vocabulary, I did not realize that we had gone this long without talking about the concept of being a mark. So, being a mark is, like, being a fan. And specifically, like, in the same context that people use the word stan.
Okay.
So, it's, like, it's not just someone who, like, likes wrestling, but it's someone who gets, like, emotionally invested.
Like, defensive about it, almost.
Yeah, well, like, emotionally invested without, like, self-critique in the moment. And that is opposed to smart marks, or the smark, who are fans that, like, follow the newsletters, that know all the, like, backstage stuff, that use words like work rate.
Oh, okay.
So...
Are you a smark, Jetta?
I like to think I'm a smark, but that's because
Is being a smark a good thing?
I mean, no, because the root of the word is like comes from like what con people, like con artists, say about like a mark as someone that a con artist targets.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, I mean, I'd like to think I'm a smark, but also the concept of smartness and intelligence is rooted in a lot of weird, classist, racist, sexist stuff. So,
I mean, it's only so much to be done there.
Yeah. And the other derivative is like to mark out. Okay. So, you know, when like a wrestler like their music hits and everyone screams.
Yeah.
That's marking out.
Oh.
Or like if you see a wrestler you like and you are at home and you're like, yeah, that's marking out.
Okay. So right now I have a cat and she's whining at the door.
We had to open the door because I wore pantyhose to Lauren's house, and I now just had to put a blanket over her stool so that I would stop sweating up her furniture.
Yep, we're gonna boil that blanket later. Anyway, so Zelda, the cat, is at the door, and she's been fed. She's had a ton of attention today, and she's like howling, and you'd think she was being tortured.
So, Justine walks in on Sam drunk and high on the floor of some random bedroom. It's obviously not Birdie's bedroom. It's too small.
It's one of the guest rooms, yeah. But it's like everything's all white, like rich people. It's all very Martha Stewart.
Yeah.
But he's listening to Perry Como's Magic Moments, which is like a rich person's like party staple. I've heard this in probably 4 or 5 movies or televisions right now. Whenever there's like a big, rich, lavish party, Perry Como's Magic Moments somehow ends up in the credits, or they're singing along to it at the party, or someone's playing it. It's like this weird, haunting song that comes after me whenever rich people frolic.
Then we get this montage where all the wrestlers go in front of the gathered attendees, pretending to be addicts and wrestlers. It's actually pretty funny. Because, like, everyone gets a chance to do a comedy bit, like...
It's also kind of like crack is a safe word. Where they're like, once we say crack, I get to exit the stage.
Yeah. Yeah, like, everyone does their bits, and then they have to remind themselves that it's crack.
Yeah.
That they...
So the thinking is like, I was addicted to the crack. And then you got Tammy's up there. She says, my husband said it's me or the crack. And I chose crack. And I love that she's the one that's selling it. And she's got like this really cute like shag situation with her hair going on. And her outfit is just burnable.
And Jenny does like do a bit where she speaks in Khmer.
Yeah.
And then only uses the word crack in English. That's like...
It's an old hackneyed joke, but
it's a funny joke, but also like it would have been, I don't know, I feel like it would have been funnier if Bash hadn't like made that part of the gimmick. The gimmick.
What I almost wanted was for her to say, I don't speak Khmer, and just start making shit up and see if the white people notice, because I bet they wouldn't.
Yeah.
That would have been funnier.
Yeah, it would have been funnier if this was like part of like her way of getting one over on the white folk.
Yeah.
And it's all pretty funny, which means we have to have a really dour fucking, heartfelt, earnest monologue from Ruth about how
sad her horrible mint green suit is.
And how she fucked Debbie's husband the first time she fucked Debbie's husband, she was wasted, but the second time she wasn't.
And wearing that suit. I could not let the suit go.
Yeah,
it was so bad.
So
the buttons glistened. I don't like it.
So these speeches seem to win over the aristocrats.
They are the whitest people I've ever seen. It's really disturbing.
And Ruth and Bash start collecting checks from people, which are immediately confiscated by Birdie. Mm-hmm. You actually had a bit here about some non-profit law.
Well, unless it was written out to cash, you would have to register that organization, prove it's like a nonprofit, 501c3. You'd have to give people receipts. There'd have to be a processing situation. You can't just go. I mean, check fraud's pretty easy, but that's a lot of check fraud. They'd be watching checks like that pretty closely, even from very rich people.
Birdie tells Ruth that she's embarrassed by most things Bash spends his time doing. And she's always thought wrestling was pure trash.
Which Bash mouths along as she says, which is a really good moment.
Yeah.
It was a really good touch.
But she says that what Ruth has said has finally given her a glimpse as to what the fuss is all about. She says she will not give Bash any more money, but she says they can film out of the ballroom at the Hayworth.
Which they own, I guess. I guess they have a ballroom that they just stash at a hotel.
Well, I imagine they own the Hayworth.
I guess.
That makes more sense.
I didn't know if they paid to put their name in a ballroom. I couldn't figure out how this worked.
Yeah.
All I wanted her to be if it was the East Coast, she'd be talking about the DAR. It'd be the whole thing.
And then so they have their venue, and then Birdie walks away, and Ruth tells Bash that he should hug his mother, and he says, we don't do that.
Yeah, it's a really, really sad moment. He also needs a haircut.
Yeah.
But he just looks, he's, oh, we don't do that. Like, it's just sort of, it's him code switching into his breeding.
Yeah.
Where there's that light, airy, empty, Nilla wafery brittleness to him. I've seen this guy, whose name I forget, yikes, in Veronica Mars. I've always loved him as kind of playing, like, a guy that plays beach volleyball, but, like, not necessarily very deep. I think he does a pretty good job in this role.
Yeah, this is a really good role.
I think he actually makes this compelling. Bash has been basically nonsense up until this. So this is the one thing that we get out of this that's kind of nice, is that Bash is a whole person now. And it took the queer male character this long, episode 9, to be even with the all lady show, to be a real person.
It's also, and we'll talk about this in the next episode, but we're starting to understand where the investment comes from, because Bash is very clearly a gay-coded character.
Yeah.
But he's obsessed with women's wrestling, and this scene kind of starts to...
Yeah, normally the joke is that when you're a gay man, you're really close to your mother.
Yeah.
And to have that not be the case, and for him to be so invested in a woman's outlet.
Yeah.
Is really interesting.
Yeah. So there, yeah, it's laying down, it's laying something down that the show will pick up, I think pretty subtly. Not as, I mean, it's more subtle than I would have liked, but, you know, it's the 80s.
We'll see.
All right, so here we go. Home
stretch. Okay. This scene gets a content warning. You've been warned.
That there is content.
It's gross. It makes me upset. Go on.
So Sam cries to Justine about how this masterpiece that he spent 10 years of his life on is ruined.
It's called Mothers and Lovers. It sounds terrible.
And, you know, why bother making stuff? And Justine tells him that making stuff he cares about is just what he does.
I mean, as somebody who quit writing probably 5 times this summer, and the 2 people, like, so Jetta and then Paul, who's sitting here, talked me out of it. Zelda did not try. She was basically like, yeah, you should quit that and pet me full time. Like, I do get, like, the theatrics of when the thing that you love doesn't do what you want it to do.
Yeah.
At the same time, cry me a fucking river.
Yeah. So then Sam has this epiphany about living in the moment, just focusing on the thing in front of you, because you don't know if there's going to be a next project. Which
sounds like cocaine.
Which which inspires him to sexually assault his possibly underage daughter.
Yeah. So that's the thing. He's like, I don't even know if you're 18. Like, he just
he specifically says, but I don't care.
Yeah, that's that. So as much as it's like gross that he's hitting on his like significantly younger woman who he's employed, so there's that. That's super gross. After dating somebody else that he's already employed and then breaking up with her. And then, like, kind of predicting whether she gets paid. This is a person that was homeless and sleeping in her car. And kind of doing kind of low-key, not quite sex work, but kind of, like, it's sort of hinted at to stay afloat. And she's gracious and lovely, and he's, like, hot garbage. For him to do this to Justine and make it about, he's like, I don't even care if you're, like, of age, because, like, we're about the same maturity level. It makes him a predator.
Yeah.
Sam Sylvia is a fucking predator.
Yes, I agree. Justine freaks out and says that she's his daughter. And then she tells the story of Sam went to a Black Panther rally in Sacramento and got kicked out, and then had a one-night stand with a bartender who was her mother.
She doesn't bartend. She owns the bar, I believe.
Oh, that is correct. That is correct.
Which, like, sounds like she's great and Sam sucks.
Yeah. So I actually got kind of tripped up on this, like, factoid about, like, Sam getting kicked out of a Black Panthers rally.
He'd have to be drunk, right?
Well, yeah. Well, so the thing is, like, so I do a lot of I do a lot of work, like, volunteering with, like, Black and Brown-led organizations, like Anti-Police Terror Project and the Defund OPD campaign here in Oakland. And yeah, like, I get kind of hung up on this because, like, there's always 3 or 4 Sam Sylvias in any, like,
and the Black Panthers were the kind of organization that wouldn't have tolerated a lot of that shit.
Yeah.
They would have kicked you out.
Yeah, well, I mean, and also the Black Panthers had there was a very stark, not a schism, but it was very polarizing, like, whether or not white people could be a part of the Black Panthers.
Completely, yeah.
But
understandably,
you get like guys like Sam in socialism.
He's every faux anarchist.
Yeah, I mean, he's just like, he's this like gross, like misogynist, like racist who thinks that by being like, I mean, it's the white dude thing where he's like,
he's Lenny Bruce. If I use
by being able to point out that other people are white, he thinks that it reduces the impact of his whiteness.
100%.
But it in fact only
reinforces the like, okay, you're aware of it and you're worse for it.
Yeah, it's like when people, it's like straight people always want to do this. Straight people in the Bay always want to do this, where like they have these like financially secure relationships and their and their families like support them and they have like steady employment and they always want to like, you know,
give back.
No, they always want to like, well, they always want to do this thing where like they apologize for their straightness.
I know.
And it's just like, oh, so straight, right? Like so gross. And it's just like, you know,
Shut up.
I don't need that, you know.
I don't need your validation that you're gross. I know. It's also how like there's a lot of people that give being poor a try.
Yeah.
Debbie says a really interesting line here about how like, so earlier on around the campfire post car wash, somebody said, heard you're poor now. Melrose says, I heard you're poor now. And Debbie said, he's broke. He's not poor. There's a difference. And it's a really interesting line. And a friend of mine, Meg Ellison, said that her favorite genre of fiction is rich people telling her how not rich they are. This is sort of a continuation of that, of like, look how disadvantaged I am because I'm so aware of other people's disadvantage. Let's make out with 18-year-olds.
When you apologize for being straight, you know, what you are actually doing is it's
like white guilt.
It's apologism for like the pain of being closeted. It's like, oh well, this thing that you have inflicted on yourself because of people like me. Like, I'm sorry that I have to be boring and straight, when it's like people have killed themselves because they couldn't be boring. Like, it's really inappropriate. It's fucked up, and also it's just like, I'm trying to think of the
so much class is leveraged against queer people. I guess like a way, this is a bad comparison, but a way to kind of like view it is, so all you straight artists out there, every time somebody like goes, oh God, I'd love to be creative and like, you know, like kill myself and like, you know, like make things and like blow my brains out at 27, and they kind of like romanticize the fucked up artist thing because they view that like what you've done is you have chosen to be a creative person to self-destruct in front of them, so they don't pay you for your work. That feeling that you get being around that every day is how the rest of us feel when you talk about how sad it is that you're straight and you don't get to use dildos.
That's really good. So Sam wants to know if Justine wants money or bone marrow.
He's very mean. He's very cruel here. He's so cutting. And he's normally pretty mean, but his voice is like a whole other register here.
And he tells her to stop looking at him, and she just runs off.
He does a tantrum,
And then he just sits alone in his room.
And it's all magic moment, Perry Como.
Yeah, there's no more in his pack of cigarettes. So does he lick
the paper? Yeah. To get the I guess to make us find him even more vile, I think is sort of where we're at. Which he needn't have bothered. We were all set. So that's the end of the episode.
Yeah. Okay. So did you suspect? Mm-hmm. When did you suspect that Justine might not be, like, was more than just, like, a crush?
I kind of hoped that it was just going to be a crush. I actually thought that would have been more interesting. Not that I wanted anything to happen between them, but I think that's actually a very normal thing, and I wanted her... Because she realized with Billy Awful that, like, he was a boring, fucked up weirdo who was, like... who was never going to like things that she liked if it wasn't convenient for him. So I figured that she would also wise up to Mark Maron... Sorry, Mark. Sam Sylvia, because he is Billy Awful all grown up. He is Mothers and Lovers is Agnostic Toad. That's the point. Like, he's making art in his attic for him, not the masses, because I'm misunderstood. So, like, I thought she was going to come to her senses. I thought the daughter thing was really cheap. I didn't think we were going to do it, and then I went actually looked to see if the writers were men, and then they weren't, and I was stunned. So all I can think is that this writer, like these writers were trying to get back at the last episode. They were like, oh, you're going to have a lady get pregnant and get an abortion? Well, we're going to have a dude try to fuck his daughter. I'm like, stop punishing me. What about you?
See, Billy, the inclusion of Billy was my sign that there was something else going on.
Oh, there was a red herring. Okay.
Because, yeah, I mean, well, if you join a wrestling show and, like, live with a bunch of, like, strangers for 6 weeks, like, because you really like a guy's work, like, you're not gonna, like...
I thought she was the gay one. I thought Justine was gonna be the gay one.
Yeah, like, you're not gonna, like, fall in love with the pizza boy. Like, it's just...
You're gonna fall in love with Arthi because she's great. And
yes, she is.
Honestly, she's not good enough for Arthi, but anyway.
No, is anyone good? I mean,
Well, maybe like Kate Middleton.
Yeah. Arthi and Rhonda would make a very cute couple.
Yeah, they would. Yeah, I'd be down for that.
So I had always suspected that there was something. I did not think they were going to go this route.
Yeah, it seemed too on the nose. But I mean, it is the 80s. I think the people that choose to set things in the 80s because it is on the nose, at least for now.
See,
these tropes are close enough.
Like, I thought, like, what they would kind of go for with it is, like, she would get hurt in the ring. And that's how he would find out.
Oh, like she needs blood?
Or just, like, she gets hurt and then her mom shows up.
Yes.
And then her mom is like, what did you do to our daughter? And then he's like, what?
That would have probably been... That would have been less horrifying for me to watch, but just as boring.
Yeah.
This trope doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's one of the problems with, like, straight white people, like, and straight white people and the media that they create is that they think that, like, making a man revisit the crater that he created is I mean, that's literally all, like, 90% of BoJack Horseman. Is like
staring into the void,
or like, I mean, honestly, also a bunch of Rick and Morty. It's like the tension in Rick and Morty is like trying to force Rick to look at the crater he made, like with his actions, and then him going like, "Well, don't care because I'm a scientist and I don't believe in love." Like, this is like that, where like there's so much of the drama around the show is like, what if we made Mark Maron confront the damage he does to people, and it's not as compelling as they think it is.
No.
Yeah.
So that was our feelings, I think. I think that's sort of where we are.
Yeah.
What did I learn this week? So I learned about marks. Because I've seen this circulating on the internet, because a lot of people have a lot of things to say about marks, and then there's like pictures of wrestling, and then I'm gonna go, oh, this isn't for me. So now I know that like marks are kind of like Uber fans, like non-critical fans almost. Stans, if you were. And then smart marks are kind of like the next level. So it's like marks are geeks and smart marks are nerds. So that's what I learned. Also, don't be Sam Sylvia's daughter. That's what I also learned.
So, what's our most Marin moment? Most Marin moment. Yeah, I think that's...
I think we have the same moment, which is a guy legitimizing to himself sleeping with his, like, underage employee, only to be, like, pissed off that it's his daughter.
Yeah.
I think that we have the identical most Marin moment there.
Okay, well, so that is episode 12.
That's our episode 12.
Episode
This is episode 9. So the next one is the season finale, of course.
So we are going to have, for next week, we are going to have, as our guest, Kate Foray, the Nate Silver of the Wrestles, the author of the Raw Breakdown, is going to review the final episode with us.
I'm so excited.
It'll be the first time I've spoken with her since I drunkenly asked her out on a date on New Year's.
Did she say yes or no?
Yeah, she did.
Oh, yeah. All right, Jetta, where can you be found?
I can be found at JETTA_RAE on Twitter. I can also be found at just there. I have a website, fryhavoc.com. Our website is glowthedistance.xyz.
You can find us on Instagram at Glow the Distance and on Facebook at Glow the Distance, where we post a lot of really cool stuff, including that interview with the actress that plays Arthi, which we mentioned earlier. I'm at Lauren Inc. on Twitter, INK. You can find me on Medium at Dissident. You can find me on Patreon at patreon.com/Lauren Parker, and Lauren E. Parker is my website. And you can't find Jetta other places, apparently.
Yeah. Well, Lauren, you really did glow the distance.
We're all champions in the ring.